I happen to think you need to put as much wrestling in your diet as you do. And of course, I don't mean that you're going to eat it, you're going to watch it. And I will tell you how. I'm Mike Quackenbush, this is Till We Make It, and I want to talk about tape study, the way in which we watch professional wrestling, the way in which we consume it. And I think you need as much in your diet as you do. If you're training 4 hours a week as a professional wrestler, I think you also need to be consuming 4 hours of professional wrestling each and every week. You train 8 hours, watch 8 hours. And I want to define those 8 hours and the way in which you're going to take it in today. You probably know that when you watch professional wrestling, at least televised wrestling, that a whole lot of the program's runtime are not matches themselves. They might be entrances, they might be vignettes, they might be skits, they might be video packages, they might be anything but wrestling. You could watch a 3-hour pro wrestling TV show and only actually see about 40 minutes of actual in-ring competition. And while I am not trying to say there is nothing to be gleaned from watching all this supplemental content that is created to make pro wrestling TV, for my own tape study purposes, if I'm trying to watch 2 hours of pro wrestling matches, that means I've got to cut all that supplemental content out and just watch the in-ring content. You might have to watch 5 televised hours to just end up with 2 of matches. So of course, while it might be good fun to sit and watch a 15-minute Botchamania video, does that count toward your couple of hours of pro wrestling diet every week? I don't think it does. You've got to be watching matches and you've got to give some focus to that tape study. What does that mean? So whenever you are going to sit down to do a little bit of tape study, pick a focal point. What are you trying to work on right now in your training or your development as a performer? Are you trying to get better at your selling? When you sit down to watch your 2 or your 4 or your 8 hours of wrestling that week, focus in on that selling. If you are trying to develop some other part of your game, like the transitions that you use when chain wrestling, then focus specifically on chain wrestling transitions as you watch all of that content. Of course, keep in mind that having that focal point might be a great pin on the map for you to navigate by, but you always want to be open to seeing other things. But so that it doesn't feel like just an aimless perusal of footage, make sure you're on the look for whatever it is you are trying to develop in your personal game. You want to get stronger as a performer as a result of this tape study. And for that to be true, it must be intentional, purposeful, have a goal. And whenever I sit down to do my tape study, I've got my notebook at the ready. It's the perfect size to go with me on the road. It goes with me to class. I make all my notes about every seminar that I attend, every seminar that I take. Everything I want to note down about professional wrestling, it goes into my notebook, including what I write during tape study. So I put my objective right at the top of the page, and then if I see anything relevant, I note it here in my book. But I also keep another running tally of any additional things I happen to come across as I'm watching back all of those matches. And I want to share with you my personal guideline for doing tape study as well. For every hour of current wrestling that I watch, I must also watch an hour that is more than 20 years old. This prevents me from just taking in content made exclusively in the same era. I break free of those shackles by forcing myself to match every current or modern hour of wrestling with something that is 20 plus years old. So if you're hearing that and you're thinking, Mike, why on earth would you watch that older wrestling? Well, it's for this reason. A lot of times there are ideas floating out there so old they are brand new again. The old masters who have retired or moved on or sadly passed away may no longer be plying their trade, but there are valuable lessons to be learned from watching what they did. I'll share with you my shorthand trick. It may serve you well. In my notes, anytime I see something and I like it, I'll put a plus sign and a circle around it. And if I see something that I'm watching during my tape study that I never want to do or that I don't think very highly of, I put a minus sign and a circle around that. So I know if I felt positively or negatively about whatever that note is. All the tape study that I do is intentional, and this includes when I am working ahead, knowing that I have an opponent waiting for me out there on the horizon, I am scheduled or otherwise booked on with someone, and I want to do a little advanced prep work so that I turn up as ready as possible to put on the best performance on the card. So, when I'm specifically scouting another performer, I am intentional about that as well when I sit down to watch their matches with my notebook. And just between you and me, anytime I sit down to scout one of my opponents, there are 6 notes I'm going to make in my little notebook about what I observe. First, I'm going to pick out 2 spots that I see recurringly throughout their matches, because it will help me start to cement that in my mind as something that might be proposed. And if it is complicated, the sooner I set my brain to the task of memorizing it, the better prepared I'm going to be when that complex idea gets rolled out during the matchmaking process. So whenever I'm scouting an opponent by watching back their matches as part of my tape study and preparation for an upcoming match, of course, I want to find 2 of those recurring spots and have them top of mind. That's 2 of the 6 notes I'm going to make in my book. And the next 2, I'm going to try and find something they are always good at so that I've got a firm grasp at their strengths. Once I'm able to identify the strengths of the person that I'm going to be performing with, the matchmaking process starts to come to light. Because part of what we must do is find the things that we are already good at and feature them. We want to showcase those items. The things that you are good at, the things that I am good at, let's put them front and center in the performance. Every time I scout one of my opponents, I'm looking for 2 spots they rely on recurringly. I look for 2 of their strong points, and similarly, I am looking for 2 of their weak points, because I want to very deftly navigate around anything they are not good at. Part of being a real pro is emphasizing the strong points of whomever you're performing with, and similarly, it is about masking the weak points, which we all have. Every performer has weak points in their game. It's unavoidable. We're all human. But being a polished pro means that you can deftly navigate around those and make sure they never end up on stage. We never expose our weaknesses in front of the paying customers. We design performances that mask them. When I sit down with my notebook to scout an opponent, those are the 6 notes I'm going to make. 2 of the spots they rely on recurringly, 2 of the things I know they are really good at, and 2 of the things I know they are struggling with. I'm going to make sure when I turn up that I am ready to emphasize the strong points to mask the weak points, and I've already got top of mind the things I know they like to call on regularly throughout their performances. Although my appetite for wrestling is not as voracious as it once was, it is really important that I keep that as part of my diet. I still enjoy scouting opponents that I know I'm going to be in the ring with, because it helps me feel like I turn up to the job well prepared. And I've got to be watching what's going on currently, as well as some stuff from a previous generation, because there are so many lessons to be learned from the wrestling that is both good and bad. Beyond which, you've got to learn how to watch your own matches back. And if that's something you have yet to explore, you'll be delighted to know. We made a video about exactly how you can self-critique your own performances. Of course, watching back any performance, you've got to be looking at more than just the mechanical aspects. You've got to think about the performative elements. You've got to think about the structural elements. And if all of this is new to you, or you're looking for a deeper exploration of those topics to inform the tape study you'll be doing, I can't recommend strongly enough my book. 7 Keys to Becoming a Better Performer, a book for fellow pro wrestlers, is available in audio format via audible.com. It's narrated by yours truly. Or you can get yourself a print or digital copy from our pals over at Amazon.